entire year. No roof that didn't leak, no fire that lit easily in soaked wood, no dry place to sleep that wasn't already claimed by someone else. So what did they actually do? The answer isn't misery, it's ingenuity. Archaeologist Lyn Wadley has spent decades excavating Sibudu Cave in South Africa, a site occupied on and off for over 70,000 years. Her research revealed something remarkable about extended bad weather. People didn't just huddle and wait. They used those forced indoor stretches for some of the most sophisticated work early humans ever did. Wadley's team found layered bedding made from reeds, sedges, and rushes, arranged specifically to repel insects. Plant material was chosen deliberately for chemical properties, not just comfort. That's not survival on autopilot. That's problem solving under pressure, done by people stuck inside with time on their hands. Rain, in other words, wasn't just an obstacle. It was often when the real work happened. Think about your own week. When plans get cancelled, when you're stuck inside, what fills the space? For a lot of people, it's the stuff that never gets done otherwise. Organizing, fixing things, sitting with your own thoughts longer than usual. Your ancestors weren't so different. Before the rain even started, there was a different kind of work. Reading the sky, watching cloud patterns, wind shifts, and animal behavior for warning signs. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, including work among Aboriginal Australian communities, have documented sophisticated seasonal forecasting passed down through generations. Knowledge about which plants flower before storms, which birds go quiet, which way animals move when pressure drops. That knowledge meant rain rarely caught people completely by surprise. There was usually time to prepare. Stockpile dry firewood under cover. Move to a shelter with better drainage. Gather extra food before the ground turned to mud and foraging became difficult. Preparation, then as now, softened the blow of what was coming. Once the rain actually began, shelter itself became an engineering problem. Archaeological evidence from sites across Europe shows increasingly sophisticated shelter construction over tens of thousands of years. Angled roofing to shed water, drainage channels dug around sleeping areas, and entrance placement designed to block prevailing winds. This wasn't guesswork. It was accumulated knowledge, tested and refined across countless storms, passed from one generation to the next. During prolonged wet spells, caves and rock shelters became workshops. Archaeologist Francesco, studying sites across Europe and Africa, has documented dense clusters of tool production and symbolic artifacts concentrated in shelter deposits, exactly the kind of detailed, time-consuming work that requires staying in one place. Making a stone tool isn't quick. Knapping flint requires precision, patience, and multiple attempts. Grinding pigment into powder for body paint or artwork takes sustained, repetitive motion. These aren't 5-minute tasks. They're the kind of work that needs exactly what a week of rain provides: enforced, unbroken time. There's a pattern here that modern psychology recognizes. Constraint often produces creativity, not despite the limitation, but because of it. Psychologist Patricia Stokes has researched what she calls constraint-based creativity, the idea that limitations force novel problem-solving in ways open-ended freedom often doesn't. When your options narrow, your mind stops scanning for possibilities and starts building with what's actually available. A week of rain narrows your options about as hard as anything can. No hunting, no long-distance foraging, no travel, just you, the people sheltering with you, and whatever raw materials happen to be nearby. That's not nothing. That's an incubator. Food during those weeks required its own kind of forethought. Ethnographic accounts of hunter-gatherer societies describe extensive practices for preserving food ahead of bad weather, smoking meat, drying tubers, storing nuts in sealed containers made from bark or leather. A family that failed to prepare adequately before a prolonged storm faced real hunger. A family that prepared well could ride out the week in relative comfort, even boredom. This is worth sitting with. Boredom for your ancestors was sometimes a sign that things were going right. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner's research on the Jew Huansi, mentioned in other contexts, also noted something relevant here. Extended time together indoors intensified storytelling, teaching, and the passing down of detailed cultural knowledge. Children learned which plants had medicinal uses. Adults refined techniques they'd only half-mastered during busier seasons. Bad weather, functionally, was a classroom with no other distractions competing for attention. Now think about what fire meant during a rainy stretch. Keeping a flame alive through days of dampness required constant tending. Someone always awake, always feeding it precisely. always protecting it from wind gusts through cave openings. That single ongoing task built something else almost as valuable as warmth: shared responsibility. Groups that successfully protected their fire through a week of storms weren't just staying warm. They were practicing coordination, trust, and division of labor in a high-stakes, low-distraction environment. The stakes were real. If the fire died and couldn't be relit quickly, the consequences were serious. Children had their own role in this rhythm. Ethnographic observations of hunter-gatherer childhood, including work by anthropologist Barry Hewlett, describe how confined periods indoors were, often when children absorbed the most through close observation, watching adults snap tools, prepare hides, or repair cordage at arm's length, for hours, with nowhere else to be. That kind of sustained, unhurried attention is difficult to replicate during busy foraging seasons. Rain, oddly enough, may have been one of the best teachers early humans ever had. This is where something interesting emerges. Difficulty didn't just test your ancestors, it trained them. Modern research on group psychology, including work by social psychologist Karen Rivich on resilience, suggests that shared hardship, when survivable and cooperative, often strengthens social bonds more than shared comfort does. People who endure something difficult together and come out fine tend to trust each other more afterward. A week trapped in a cave with the same 6 or 7 people, tending fire, making tools, telling the same stories for the 100th time wasn't wasted time. It was some of the most socially binding time your ancestors ever experienced. There's also evidence that prolonged shelter time shaped early artistic behavior. Some of the oldest known engraved objects and pigment processing tools, including the famous ochre pieces from Blombos Cave in South Africa, were found in contexts suggesting sustained indoor activity. Symbolic thought, in other words, may not have emerged only in moments of abundance and leisure. It may have partly emerged from being stuck somewhere, with time to fill and materials at hand. Compare that to your rainy week now. A cancelled hike, a missed run, maybe a mild flicker of cabin fever by day 3. The discomfort is real, but the stakes have changed almost entirely. Your ancestors' rain meant no food gathering, real cold, and real risk. Yours means Wi-Fi and a blanket. But the psychological pull toward the same behaviors hasn't disappeared. You still find yourself doing the deferred tasks. You still crave the extended conversation you don't usually have time for. You still reach, almost instinctively, for something to make with your hands. That instinct is old, very old. Next time the rain doesn't stop and the week stretches long, remember what that stretch of time used to mean. Not lost days, not wasted time. For nearly all of human history, the rain was when the real work got done.